War of the Anunnaki Gods, Enki versus Enlil, the fight for the fate of humanity. In a long time ago, when the world was still young and the boundaries between humans and gods were fragile, Sumer was the scene of a titanic confrontation. In those days, heaven and earth still spoke to each other, and the gods walked among mortals, sometimes blessing them, sometimes punishing them. Humanity was just beginning its path to civilization, and the mysteries of the cosmos were sacredly guarded by the great gods. They, in all their glory, had shaped the earth, planted the first rivers, and taught people to build their cities. However, in this age of miracles, not all things were peaceful. In the midst of this fascinating world, two divine brothers controlled the essential elements of existence: Enki, the god of waters, wisdom and creation, and Enlil, the god of storms, winds, and order. They represented two fundamental principles, each necessary for the balance of the world, but opposite in vision and nature. Enki was the keeper of hidden knowledge, a god of compassion and progress, who gave humans the secrets of irrigation and agriculture, making their survival possible. Enlil, on the other hand, was an authoritarian ruler, devoted to order and discipline, who believed in the absolute submission of mortals to the divine will. Although they had initially worked together to shape the world, the relationship between the two brothers had become strained. While Enki saw in humans the potential for greatness, Enlil considered them a burden, weak beings incapable of understanding the true cosmic order. Mortals, although grateful for the gifts they received from Enki, feared Enlil's storms and wrath, who punished any disobedience without hesitation. The story begins at a crucial moment, when these irreconcilable differences between Enki and Enlil began to manifest themselves more and more clearly. Enki, observing the suffering of the people under Enlil's strict laws, decided to intervene. His wisdom and compassion led him to violate the rules established by the Divine Council, and this act of rebellion unleashed an unprecedented conflict. Enlil, furious, believed that his brother was weakening the cosmic order, and the two brothers found themselves caught in a war not only for the fate of humanity, but also for supremacy in the pantheon of the gods. This confrontation between Enki and Enlil was not just a simple dispute between two brothers. It was symbolic of the struggle between chaos and order, between progress and tradition, between freedom and control. As the rivers flowed and the skies darkened, mortals prepared to witness a battle that would shape their futures and become part of the legends of all civilizations. When Enlil convened a council of the gods to decide the fate of mankind, the echoes of their decisions would be felt in every corner of the world. And so, beyond the walls of Sumerian cities, beyond the great temples and sacred rivers, an epic story came to life, a story of divine and mortal, of betrayal and loyalty, of the will to build or to destroy. The Council of the Gods and the Declaration of War. The skies were heavy with clouds, and a sharp wind swept across the vast expanses of Sumer when Enlil convened a council of the gods in Nippur, his holy city. There, in the great temple of Iker, with its walls that seemed carved from divine light, all the great gods gathered. And the god of the sky and their father sat on the central throne, and his stern gaze seemed to reach beyond time. Around him, lesser deities stood in shadow, but their eyes were fixed on the two brothers. Enlil was the first to speak. His voice was like thunder, and every word was a command. Mortals have become a burden. They defy the order we have imposed. They covet our knowledge, and Enki, my brother, has given them gifts that were not meant for them. If we let them continue, chaos will sweep the earth, and we will be forgotten. I propose their destruction, by a flood that will cleanse the world of this rebellion. Murmurs of approval rose from some of the gods, but remained silent. Enki rose from his seat, his presence calm but powerful. As Enlil thundered, Enki's voice was like flowing water, still but unstoppable. Brother, look around you. Mortals are not merely weak, they are our creations. We gave them life, we taught them to build, to sow, and to reap. If we destroy them now, we destroy our very heritage. I cannot stand by and watch our work crumble. If you trust the path of order, give them a chance to evolve. These words lit a flame in Enlil's gaze. He rose from his throne, and the heavens began to tremble. You continue to defend them, though you see that they are heading for self-destruction. If you refuse to join the council's decision, then I will consider you an enemy of order. The flood will come, and nothing will stop it." With this declaration, the conflict was sealed. The gods, though hesitant, approved Enlil's plan. But Enki, in silence, swore that he would not allow humanity to be wiped out of existence. That same night, he retreated to his underground temple in Eridu, where he began to devise a plan to save his creations. The mortals, however, did not know what divine forces had been unleashed upon them and what fate awaited them. Enki's secret plan. Deep within his temples in Eridu, Enki stood before a shimmering pool, where the sacred waters of the Apsu mysteriously reflected the stars. Every ripple of the water seemed to hold a cosmic secret, and Enki knew that only time was his ally. Mortals, ignorant of the storm that was about to break, went about their peaceful existence, working the fields and building cities, unaware that the shadows of destruction were gathering above them. Enki then called upon the wisest of the water spirits, ancient entities who had dwelt in the depths since the beginning of creation. In a solemn voice, he shared his plan: choose a worthy mortal, one who can bear the burden of saving his kind. I will guide him, and he will build a ship that can withstand the wrath of the heavens. The spirits went in search of this chosen mortal, and Enki, in the silence of the deep, whispered to the waters. He invoked the sacred power of creation to endow the ship with divine protections, unseen shields that would withstand the waves and storms that were to come. At the same time, he sent prophetic dreams to the chosen mortal, a man named Zayusadra, known for his kindness and wisdom. In his dream, Zayusadra saw dark waters covering the entire earth, and a warm but firm voice spoke to him: "Time is short. Build a ship according to these instructions. Take with you your family and the seeds of life, for the world must go on." Zayusadra, waking up cold, began to put his dream into practice. With each blow of his hammer, he felt a divine weight on his shoulders. His neighbors looked on in disbelief, mocking him, but he knew that time was merciless. Meanwhile, Enki hid his actions from the watchful gaze of Enlil, who was growing ever more eager to unleash his wrath. In the heavens, Enlil felt a growing unease. He knew that Enki was cunning and that somewhere deep down he was plotting against the divine decision. But, caught up in his own wrath, Enlil could no longer hold back. The plan of destruction was already in motion, and storms were gathering on the horizon. Mortals, mere spectators of a cosmic conflict, would soon discover that not only the earth, but the very will of the gods would be tested by what lay ahead. The divine storm and the trial of mankind. At dawn, the sky began to darken unnaturally. Heavy clouds, charged with an incomprehensible fury, covered the land, and the murmur of the storm grew more and more threatening. Mortals looked up in fear, seeking answers in the stars, but found only darkness. The rivers, once calm, began to swell, bringing with them scraps of wood and earth. Amidst the chaos, Zayusadra worked without stopping. His ship, built according to divine instructions, began to take shape. The massive wood, tied with tightly stretched ropes, rose like a sanctuary in the middle of the plain. His neighbors continued to look at him with distrust, some laughing, others whispering in fear about the possible wrath of the gods. In his temple, Enlil prepared to give the final signal. One call, and the forces of nature would be unleashed. "Today begins the cleansing," he said. His voice echoed through the heavens, and the winds were unleashed. The rain began to fall, first as a whisper, then as a relentless roar. Enki, however, was attentive to every detail. Through his sacred waters, he watched Zayusadra's preparations. Every wave, every raindrop conveyed information to him. "It must endure," he whispered. In the depths, the water spirits watched over the ship, guiding Zayusadra's hands. As the rain became a deluge, people began to flee to higher ground, but there was no safe shelter. The earth began to crack, and the raging rivers devoured everything in their path. In the midst of the disaster, Zayusadra's ship rose on the waters, surrounded by a wave of divine light that seemed to protect it. His neighbors, overcome with despair, tried to approach, but the waters prevented them. The storm continued for 7 days and 7 nights, and every moment was a struggle for survival. In the heavens, Enlil watched the devastation with satisfaction, but Enki could not hide his concern. If humanity is extinguished, what will we rule? He wondered in his mind. As the waters began to recede, Ziusadra, exhausted, opened a hatch in the ship and looked out over the expanse of water that stretched to the horizon. "I survived," he whispered. But he knew that the real ordeal was just beginning. The ship would become a symbol of rebirth, but also a witness to a tragedy of cosmic proportions. The final judgment of the gods. The divine storm had ended, but its consequences would reverberate for eternity. In the council of the gods, the tension was palpable. Enlil, though pleased with the destruction, could not ignore the fact that a mortal had survived. How was this possible? He asked angrily. All eyes turned to Enki, who remained calm. Our creation deserved a chance, Enki said. Ziusadra survived not because we defied the will of the council, but because order and chaos must coexist. Without humans, what is the point of our power? And, in a grave voice, intervened, "You have seen what it means to fight among yourselves. From now on, the balance must be maintained. Mortals will begin to rebuild the world, but the story of this destruction will be told from generation to generation, lest it be forgotten." Enlil, though displeased, could not challenge An's authority. Thus the fragile peace between the gods was restored, and Ziusadra became a symbol of human rebirth. Yet, deep in their souls, Enlil and Enki knew that their rivalry was not over. Humanity was rebuilding its life on the ruins of the old world, and the story of the flood became a legend that would inspire fear, hope, and respect for the gods who watched over them. The conflict between chaos and order in Sumerian mythology. Sumerian mythology, with its fascinating complexity, offers not only a story of gods and mortals, but also a profound metaphor for the universal struggle between chaos and order, between creation and destruction. This mythology is rooted in the experiences of a civilization that witnessed its own progress and decline, and the gods Enki and Enlil are symbols of the contrasting principles that govern the world. In the myth of their confrontation, Enki and Enlil represent more than divine archetypes. They are expressions of a cosmos that balances precariously on the edge of the abyss. Enki, the god of water, wisdom, and knowledge, resents the strict order imposed by his brother, Enlil, the god of storms and discipline. This tension transcends Sumerian mythology, being present in all civilizations of the world, from the yin-yang duality in Chinese philosophy to the conflict between Apollo and Dionysus in ancient Greece. The conflict between the two brothers has deep roots in Sumerian cosmogony. Enki, the one who shapes the world from the primordial chaos of the waters of Apsu, is an atypical creator. Unlike Enlil, who prefers rigid structure and absolute submission, Enki recognizes the need for change, for adaptability. This is why, when Enlil decides to destroy humanity with a flood, Enki intervenes, giving Ziusadra the plans for a life-saving ship. This choice of Enki reflects a deeper philosophical view that chaos is not the opposite of order, but its source. Without chaos, there is no innovation, and creative energy ceases to flow. In this sense, the flood myth becomes more than a story of destruction and rebirth. It is an illustration of the eternal tension between the need for stability and the urge to change the status quo. In the controversial writings of Zecharia Sitchin, the conflict between Enki and Enlil takes on an extraterrestrial dimension. Sitchin argues that these gods were not just mythological figures, but advanced beings who came to Earth, part of a race called the Anunnaki. According to his interpretations, Enki and Enlil represented opposing factions of these cosmic visitors, each with their own plan for the evolution of humanity. This approach opens the door to fascinating speculation. Were the great mythological events described in the Sumerian texts the result of interplanetary conflicts? For example, the flood described in the Epic of Gilgamesh and other Sumerian texts can be interpreted, in light of Sitchin's hypotheses, as a deliberate attempt to control the human population. Enlil, the preserver, saw humans as a threat, while Enki, the protector of knowledge, believed that this species needed to be saved and guided towards enlightenment. Regardless of the interpretation adopted, the story of the confrontation between Enki and Enlil has a strong symbolic relevance. It reflects not only the fragility of the cosmic balance, but also the fundamental dilemmas of humanity. How far can we go in the pursuit of progress? Is absolute order a solution or a trap? The Earth, at the crossroads of their decisions, becomes the scene of an archetypal story of survival, knowledge, and sacrifice. Enki and Enlil are not just gods of an ancient world, but forces that continue to shape how we perceive the struggle for existence. Their responses to the challenges of the cosmos are, in essence, our responses to our own fragility and ambition.